Hello everyone, this is High Priestess Tana, and thank you for tuning in to Tana Temple Healing Works. And I wanted to continue talking about slavery in Detroit. So as you know, in part one, if you've viewed part one, I gave a in-depth overview or a lot of details regarding slavery in Detroit, which is a topic a lot of people don't really discuss. And I felt the need to really discuss that more in depth during these videos. In part one, I gave some back history or a backstory and some history behind what led up to slavery even developing in Detroit. A lot of people are aware about slavery in the South, but a lot of people don't talk about slavery up north, especially in a state such as Michigan, okay, where you wouldn't even expect a lot of slavery to exist. But in my last video, I actually finished talking about slavery and pretty much how some slaves were fighting back by suing their owners, if I recall correctly, and asking for freedom suits or writs, I believe that's how you pronounce it, writs of habeas corpus to petition for their freedom. But few won their freedom through the courts. So I wanted to actually go back and talk about a few other things. So I started talking about the case in the matter of Elizabeth Dennison et al. Was tried in 1807. And I talked about that in depth, but what I wanted to talk about was, and you're going to start hearing a lot of buzzwords or keywords that you hear all the time that are related to certain streets in Michigan and stuff. So, well, specifically in Detroit, Michigan, correction. So, I want to go back and talk about that a little bit because I felt like I missed a few things. A farmer, William Tucker, owned members of the African American Dennison family. He willed that Peter and Hannah should be freed after his and his wife's death. Their children were willed to the family of Tucker's brother. The Dennisons initiated a groundbreaking lawsuit for the freedom of the children, citing the anti-slavery provisions of the Northwest Ordinance. Judge Augustus Woodward, you heard of that name, right? Woodward, okay, we know about the street Woodward. And the Michigan Supreme Court ruled that children Elizabeth, James, Scipio, and Peter Dennison should be enslaved. Wow. And they named the streets after these important figures, right? Like you think about Woodward. Wow, that is crazy. Yeah, but let's keep going. The Dennison family crossed into Canada, where they lived until Woodward later ruled that enslaved people who became free by living in Canada would not be returned to the Michigan Territory slaveholders. Daughter Lisette became a successful businesswoman and property owner. In the meantime, there were two people from Canada who were released in 1808 as the result of their freedom suits. The following year, a boy named Thomas and a woman named Hannah were released. Wow. So by 1810, there were 24 slaves in Michigan, 17 of whom were in Detroit. Free and enslaved blacks were recruited to fight during the Chesapeake Crisis and during the War of 1812. That's another important war too, which released the enslaved men from the bonds of slavery. I actually talked about something pertaining to bond service, which is a form of serfdom, pretty much. I'm not going to go into all that because that's going to take up too much time. You can just watch part one. So let's see. Mayor John R. Williams, heard of the street John R? See what I'm talking about? See, all this is going to start coming together. Used enslaved people for forced labor. In 1817, Williams sought to purchase two Native American teenage children who he planned to hold as indentured servants until they were 30 years of age. Wow. Although there were known slaves in the Michigan Territory in 1820, there were none recorded in the census. Oh my God. So the Detroit Free Press, founded in 1831, supported slavery leading up to the Civil War. Ain't that about nothing? Wow. What the fuck? All these street names and different organizations and companies that we support that have been around forever in Detroit probably was part of the slave trade in Detroit or supported it. Wow, this is crazy, y'all. You have to excuse me. I don't know why my eyes are itching so bad. It's crazy. I need some coffee too, y'all, but I got some right here. But yeah, that's interesting. So after freeing themselves in Kentucky, Thornton and Lucy Blackburn arrived in Detroit in 1831. In 1833, free and enslaved blacks rioted against the imprisonment of the Blackburn family in what is called the Blackburn riots. Whoa, that's a whole different story. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to make separate videos about some of these riots and stuff. This is crazy. Rioters wounded the sheriff in the process of of freeing the Blackburns and threatened to set the city on fire. Y'all, check this out. We had riots back in the 1800s. This was back in 1833, in the summer of 1833 in Detroit. Then we also had that 1967 riot too. Those need their own videos. I'm going to talk about that separately. Yeah, that's wild. That's wild right there. An enslaved woman named Rachel was held as a slave in Michigan Territory before being sold to a new slave owner in Missouri Territory. Wow, you notice like the name territory, the territory of Missouri, the territory of what else I was thinking of? Michigan. Right? Because this was when the United States was still forming and they weren't really considered states, quote unquote. They were like colonies or territories at the time still. As I mentioned, Detroit was formerly known as Pt.2 or Fort Pontchartrain, Detroit, right? So yeah, like this goes deep. This is dealing with the 18th and 19th centuries, right? So let's do our history lesson. So from the 1700s to 1800s, we consider those the 18th and 19th centuries. Yeah. So let's go. This is a lot. In 1834, she filed the freedom suit, Rachel versus Walker, which was lost in the lower court. She appealed to the Supreme Court of Missouri, where she won a case in her freedom in 1836. Oh, goodness. So she did win her case in her freedom eventually in 1836. Ooh, slavery was banned throughout the British Empire, including Canada, due to the Slavery Abolition Act 1833. 2 years later, there were 2 slaves in Monroe County. Don't that sound familiar? And one in Cass County. Wow. Slavery was banned in Michigan Territory in 1835 with its first Constitution of Michigan in the run-up to statehood, 1837. Wow. This is insane. Anti-slavery movement. Excuse me, y'all. Throat is dry and scratchy.